Hey everyone, this is the Cycle 1 Week 13 science video. You're going to need your Van Cleves science book for the experiments for the third quarter. Number 121 is one of the experiments we're doing for week 13. So this video will be about that one in particular, and I'll make a separate video for the other experiment that we're doing for week 13. But number 121, tilt, is on page 168 in your Van Cleves book. This is the purpose of this experiment is to demonstrate the effect of the Earth's tilt on the different seasons of the year. Now, obviously, living in a place like Florida, this is going to be a good conversation because we don't get to experience a whole lot of change of seasons here, but this will better explain why we have seasons throughout the year. So the materials that you're going to need are 2 sharpened pencils, which you have in the student bins as well as your tutor bins. So those I'm not going to provide for you because you have them already. But what I will provide for you is a container of modeling clay. Each of you will get your own. I have one already made here, so one of you will have it already made. Yes. Rebecca's here with me, so. And then you're also going to need a flashlight. Now I have a couple of different types of flashlights. The one I'm using to demonstrate for you is like this. It has a little clip to it, only because I don't have very many hands. So 2 of you lucky ladies are going to get one of these type of flashlights because that's what I have. And then I have regular smaller flashlights for the rest of you. Please don't come in here while I'm recording. Thank you. All right. So in order to do this, I'm also going to provide for you the science sheets, as you see here, with lots of great visuals to explain this experiment a bit better. And remember that the purpose is to learn about Earth's orbit around the sun and why our planet has different seasons throughout the year. These sheets are really great at going through the scientific method. What kind of questions would your students have about why there are seasons? You can start off by asking them, why does the Earth look like it orbits the sun? And what makes the seasons? And so the first thing you're going to do is, and you're just going to have little kids in this video. Sorry, guys. You're going to insert a pencil through the ball of clay. So what I've done is I rolled this into a ball. You guys aren't supposed to see this beforehand. There. Okay, great. You're going to roll it into a ball, and then you're going to take one of the pencils and put it through the ball, just like this, right in the center. And you'll take your second pencil just to draw the equator, just like that. Then it says to position the ball on the table so that the pencil eraser is leaning slightly to the right. So that would mean like this, if you can see that okay. I couldn't get mine to stay perfectly, so you might have to slide the pencil around to get that to be perfect. And honestly, I don't love that. So you could hold it if you really wanted to. I'm going to hold it just because I have my flashlight clipped here. But the idea is you want to demonstrate the Earth tilted on its axis. That's what the pencil is supposed to be. Kind of like the North Pole, South Pole, if you want to explain it that way to them. And here's the equator. And so the Earth isn't straight up and down. It's tilted on its axis. That essentially is what causes the seasons. And so what you're going to do is turn on your flashlight. And the first thing it says is to position the ball, in a darkened room. So obviously in your classrooms, you're going to have to turn off the lights, get it as dark as you can get it to be. Make sure you've asked all the questions and done all of the, research information. What have you already learned about the Earth? What seasons do we have? This is all coming from cycle 2. So if they haven't been through cycle 2, they probably don't know a lot of this information quite yet. Yes, thank you, Rebecca. I have a lovely assistant here today. And then you want to ask them the hypothesis on the science sheets before you actually do the experiment, because you want to give them an opportunity to try to guess what they think is going to happen. So how will the light from the flashlight, so you go through the materials, then you ask them, how will the light from the flashlight on different parts of the Earth, how will the light shine on different parts of the Earth as it orbits the sun? So you can even, if you'd like to, because this isn't part of the experiment, find a bigger object in the room and pretend like that's the sun. The table, a chair, whatever you'd like to use, a person. And then you're going to pretend like here's the Earth and we're going to orbit the sun. And then obviously you're going to want the flashlight to be wherever that object is. So if it's a person, you can have them holding the flashlight. Keep it stationary, pointing toward the Earth. Or the nice thing about this little clip-on flashlight is those of you who have that can actually clip it to something and use it that way. So maybe I'll give that to the ladies who don't have as many adults in the room that might be able to assist you. So thank you. This is taking way longer because I have children. So what you're going to do is it says to place the flashlight about 6 inches from the left side of the ball. If the pencil, according to what this says, if the pencil's leaning to the right, the left would be the other side. So I'm just going to turn this around for the sake of this. So you're going to show them how if the axis of the earth is tilting away from the sun, shine the sun directly to the side and demonstrate. I noticed that on the southern hemisphere, because we're learning the parts of the earth at this point. I don't know if that's, I don't remember what week we're doing that for science, but they're going to learn that above the equator is the northern hemisphere and below the equator is the southern hemisphere. So I think they've learned that already at this point, or maybe that's the science for that week. If not, you might want to explain that so that they understand the direct light from the sun is going to be different if you center it. Obviously, the sun's light is going to be all over, so it's not a big light. But that's why you want to be 6 inches away, because if you're any further than that, the light's going to look different. So notice the direct sunlight is brighter on the southern hemisphere, and it's not as bright on the northern hemisphere. Talk about why. What season do you think it is? What is the temperature going to be like? What's the climate going to be like in the southern hemisphere versus the northern? And they might make their own inference that, well, the southern hemisphere is going to be warmer, so maybe it's summer in the southern hemisphere. And what's the opposite time of year? Winter. So maybe it's the winter there. Again, don't need to get into specifics, but letting them observe that for themselves and letting each child come over and hold it or whatever. So that's why I don't love it being on the table, because it makes it harder for them to see. That's why I don't particularly like that specific direction in the book. So then you're going to face it the opposite direction. Have that same conversation. Well, when it's leaning toward the sun, remember the earth is constantly revolving around the sun, and the light is not going to just be in one fixed location. It's going to be spread in every direction. That's why we're not going to keep moving around. We're going to keep it still. And then again, they'll observe that the light has more direct sunlight on the northern hemisphere and it's less direct on the southern. And you can even, with your older kids, talk about what happens in the South Pole, what happens in the North Pole. Well, in the North Pole, during this season, they don't get a sunset. The sun is up all day long. And so like in places like Alaska, they have to actually close their blinds in order for them to sleep at night, because the sun never really sets. And then the southern hemisphere, like in Antarctica, during their winter months, it's dark for days. Like they just don't get a sunrise at all. So talk about what the climate must be like during their winter versus ours. I'm going to turn this off because it is blinding me. And then the results obviously are comparing the direct sunlight, where it's brighter, where it's not, having those conversations about the Earth's axis, how when it points toward the sun, more direct rays hit that area, and then comparing that to the southern hemisphere and vice versa. So remember, with these experiments in the book, when it gives you very specific directions, using the materials that I provide for you, you may need to modify it just a little, but it's the same idea. And then that gives you an opportunity to, and by the way, there's 2 experiments this week. So considering you have about 15 minutes per experiment, the next one's a little bit messy. This one won't take as long, but there are some really great discussion points on here that I would take the time to talk through with your class, especially the conclusion. Another thing I'm going to provide for you, and don't lose these, because we're actually going to use these in the 4th quarter. They're going to create something where we're going to actually cut these in half to show them the layers of the earth, the geosphere. I think that's week 20. And so I will give this to you to use to demonstrate the same thing with an actual mini globe. But I will be collecting these back. So that's another material I'll give you for week 13. But again, these pictures on the back are really great for showing what the seasons look like and where the Earth's axis is. So I will be providing that as well. I hope that was helpful. Not a lot of materials for that experiment. I will make a separate video for the second experiment, number 127, sinkers.